Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about what's going on at home during World War One. What's going on the home front, as we're going to call it. What are Americans doing to prepare for the war, to help out in the war at home, and some other issues that are going to go on at home. Let's get into it. Let's start talking about rationing first. So if most of us know, if we ration something, we are saving something or we're limiting something. We're using less of it on purpose for a specific purpose. So in this case, we're going to talk about food mostly. A lot of things will be rationed for the war, but we want to concentrate on food. So what's going to end up happening is every week or so, the government is going to send families a series of ration coupons to force them to ration food, to force them to save or limit food. So if you went to the store and you wanted to buy sugar, let's say, you would walk up to the cash register and you would need a ration coupon, and you would also need cash. If you just had cash, you couldn't get the sugar because there was a low supply of it. They wanted to make sure everyone at home had enough, but also the soldiers overseas were getting enough food that they needed. So we wanted to support our soldiers fighting by making sure they have enough food. So ration coupons are going to make that happen, and people are all over the country are going to be forced to ration. Expanding upon this, Americans are also going to have to grow their own food. They're not going to have to, but it's going to be encouraged. So propaganda programs are going to create this idea called victory garden, saying if you grow a garden in your own backyard or in an open field in your community, on a playground, wherever there's dirt and grass that you're able to do this, you're going to help out the war. You're going to make sure you have enough food at home in your own garden so you don't have to go to the store to buy as much. And that way, there'll be more food to send to the soldiers. So far we're doing a good job rationing, a good job saving food. And the government's going to create all sorts of propaganda posters to make this possible, to encourage people to go out and grow their own fruits and vegetables and other foods. They're also going to encourage Americans to buy something that we call war bonds, or just bonds in general. It'll have a few names. They could be called war bonds, liberty bonds, or victory bonds. They're all the same thing. So the thing is, war is very expensive, and the government needed more money to help pay for things that soldiers needed, things like guns, food, vehicles, all sorts of things. So they're going to ask the citizens to loan them money. So they're going to say, hey, citizens, buy this liberty bond, buy this victory bond. If you buy that, you're going to basically loan the government money, and while you've loaned us money, you get these bonds, and these bonds, they raise in price slowly over time usually. So when the war is over, if you want to, you can sell the bond back to the government, and you'll probably make a little money on it, a few percent. So Americans all over the country are going to support the war effort by buying these bonds. And what are they going to do? They're helping pay for the war. Let's get to one of our laws. So this is what we call the Selective Service Act. What this is going to do is during World War One, they're going to set up a new system called the Selective Service. If you were 21 to 30 and you were a male, you had to join this new organization called the Selective Service. And what this is going to do is anyone who's joined the Selective Service, randomly their names are going to be picked out. And if your name was picked, you would be drafted or picked to go to war and help fight in World War One. And this would make sure the United States had enough troops to actually fight in the war. And if they, you got to realize at the time, America's army wasn't that big. They had a big navy, but nothing on a caliber of fighting in a world war. So now America's going to have enough troops, and the Selective Service is still going to be around today. Today, it's if you're 18 or over and you're a male, you would have to join. Let's get to our next one. And as you see right here, it says, attention, all males between the ages of 21 and 30 years must personally appear at the polling place in the election district in which they reside. On June 5th, 1917, you must register. There's no excuse for failure to register. If you didn't register, and if you still don't today, there are penalties, there are consequences. All right, another act. So we just talked about the Selective Service Act is literally selecting people for military service to go fight. Now this is a more controversial law, and that one was pretty controversial. This one's called the Espionage Act. So what the Espionage Act is going to do is they're basically going to throw your First Amendment right out the window. They're going to say if you criticize the war, if you talk bad about the war, you can go to jail, you can be charged, you can be fined. So if you did that, you could pay up to $10,000 in fines and or go to prison. And a lot of people criticized this and said, hey, this is against the freedom of speech. This is against our First Amendment right. But in total, 6,000 Americans are going to be thrown in jail over this, which is pretty crazy. As we see right here, we have the Statue of Liberty, the Espionage Act, or the Espionage Bill, same thing, is stealing Lady Liberty's flame, which kind of represents liberty, represents freedom. So the Espionage Act is stealing our rights, our freedoms, the First Amendment. So this isn't going to go over so well, and you're going to see that on this court case. So we have a Supreme Court case called Schenck versus United States, and it happened in 1919. So Schenck was this guy who didn't want to go to war, and he didn't support the war, and he sure didn't like the Selective Service Act, which randomly picked people to go to war. So he was distributing these pamphlets, these flyers that told people, resist the draft, don't go to war, don't join the Selective Service, it's dangerous, don't do it. And he told them to ignore it if they were selected for service. Well, because of that, he's basically criticizing the war. So what act is he violating? The Espionage Act. Therefore, he's charged with violating that crime. So he's going to challenge this law. He's going to sue and say, the Espionage Act violates my First Amendment right. It's an unconstitutional law. And his case, Schenck versus U.S., goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they have to decide, is freedom of speech absolute? Can I say anything whenever I want to, no matter what? And here's what the Supreme Court decides. They're going to say that your First Amendment can be restricted if what you say represents a clear and present danger. So in this case, Schenck was protesting the war. He was saying, don't join the war, don't join the war, ignore the draft, ignore the Selective Service Act. So the Supreme Court is going to say that represents what we call a clear and present danger. He is threatening the war effort by telling people not to join the war, to ignore the draft. And that might put us in a position to lose the war, which is dangerous, which is clear and present danger, they're going to say. And this still has implications today. If you get on a plane and you yell bomb, you will make people panic, and they might trip over each other, get hurt, so on. So it's illegal to yell because you've created a situation where there is a clear and present danger. Another example might be if you're in a crowded mall and you yell, he's got a gun, and you know there's no gun. You create a panic, people are going to get hurt. You're in a movie theater that's crowded and you yell fire. You create a panic, people get hurt. So Schenck versus U.S. has meaning to us still today.